Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Joffrey Noodle Legs here today, going through some more music with you. Today I've got a video called Awesome Albums That Are Worth Checking Out. Okay, so this is, again, it's a vast sort of mix of sort of genre of music, because I do like a varied music taste. I'm not into hip hop, punk. No, not punk. I mean pop. I'm not into hip hop, pop, or anything like that sort of thing, or any R&B. When I mean R&B, I mean I love the proper rhythm blues like the Rolling Stones, but the modern R&B, or this sort of stuff. No, I haven't got time for that, because it's all kind of manufactured, and I don't really like that. I like my music to be sort of like real. Anyway, so I've got quite a varied lot of albums to go through today. So I'm going to have a quick, some of these you probably know and heard of, and maybe have or have heard before, because it is quite like a sort of like just some awesome albums that are worth checking out. If you've not heard any of these, I would recommend picking any of these up and giving them a go, see what you think, especially if you can pick them up on a cheap price or whatever. But try and buy your music, guys. Don't just download it for free, all right? Because this what's killing the industry is all these free downloads. And if you kill off that, artists are going to release less because they can't afford to, because they know that their music isn't going to be making them any money. It's their job, just like at your job where you go to work and you work and you earn your money. That's their job, and that's how they earn their money. So always buy your music. Always buy it from your band if you can, or buy it from a reputable seller. But yeah, buy your music. Anyway, first up is it's an 80s album, which I really like, and it's called The Crossing by Big Country. This is such a cool album. Um, it's got the feels of Fire and Change and their big sort of hits on there, in a Big Country. Obviously, we lost Stuart. He committed suicide, I believe. Um, but yeah, great band. They're still about. Some of the original members are still in the band. They did have a spate where Mike Peters was singing for them, but that's no longer happening. But yeah, they're a Scottish band, and they made some great albums in the 80s. Their music style, it's sort of like an alternative rock, similar to sort of U2, The Alarm, that sort of sound. Yeah, so Big Country, The Crossing, really good album. Next one's a live album, recorded live at Liverpool Cathedral, and this is Ian McCulloch. He's the lead singer of Echo and the Bunnymen. Now, he's signed this for me, as you can see. His signature's, he's got a bit of a strange signature, but that is his signature. This is a live album of him, like acoustically, acoustic guitar, and I think there's like, so he's got like a backing tracking tape going, like playing some strings on it. Really cool live album. He's really funny live, Ian McCulloch, and he's really cool. He's really good live, and he's kind of sarky. But I really love going to see Ian or Echo and the Bunnymen live. They're fantastic live band, and you experience them better live, I think, than in the studio. Although their albums are awesome. But yeah, this is Ian McCulloch live at Liverpool Cathedral. Really cool album. Please check that out. Next one's a bit of a sort of a prog rock sort of album. This is called Fear of the Black Planet by Porcupine Tree. Now, I do like Porcupine Tree. They're really cool. They've got like a sort of heavy prog sound to them. They've got bits of sort of heavy metal sound to them, a bit of electronic and that. They can chain Richard Barbera, who's used to be in David Sylvian's band, Japan. He now plays with Porcupine Tree. So worth checking out. They're quite heavy at sometimes, and then they can be quite melodic at others. This one, The Fear of the Blank Planet, is really cool. It's got that sort of good mix and balance of that sort of music styles. Really cool album. Next up is a bit of a sort of comedy album, and it's called Saturday Neat Fever. And this is by the Bar Stewards of Valdoonican. Now, they're a sort of comedy folk band. They sort of play folky music, and their lyrics are sort of comedy based. They do quite a few cover versions, but they change all the lyrics to the songs, so to their own, and they change the sort of titles, like Staying Alive on this is called Eaten Alive. They change the titles and they sort of like make a sort of folky comedy sort of version of the song, and it's really really cool. I've got quite a few of their albums. That again, they're another band that are really really good live. If you get to catch them, they tend to play lots of festivals, but you might see them in a very small sort of dingy club where you play. So keep your eyes open for them. That's the Bar Stewards of Valdonicum. Next up is another live album recorded at Live at Queen Elizabeth Hall, and this is Brett Anderson. This is like Brett Anderson with an acoustic key set with a string quartet with him. Brett Anderson, if you don't know who he is, he's the lead singer of a band called Suede. And this does include quite a few Suede's well-known songs like The Wild Ones and Trash, Saturday Night. But it's all done like acoustically with strings, and it's got like a lot of his solo material on there as well. And the recording is, mwah, it's phenomenal. He's done a set of albums. I have all of them, but this one is particularly brilliant. So if you're going to get one of these live albums that he's done, pick this one up. It's the best set, it's the best sound, and it's just fantastic. And that is Brett Anderson live at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. I'm really promoting this guy today. It's his second album in this list, and this is Ian McCulloch again, and this is Candleland. This was his first sort of solo album, which he released in the 80s. Just, I think the Bunnymen were probably having a little break from recording albums, and he went and recorded his solo album, Candleland, which is really cool. It's got a few guest singers on here, like Elizabeth Fraser from the Cocktail Twins. She sings on this album on the actual title song, Candleland, and it's got some great songs on here. Proud to Fall, I really really like. It's a really really cool album. The Flickering War is probably one of my favourite tracks on the whole album. But that is Ian McCulloch's Candleland. Definitely worth checking out, and it's available in like a 2-disc set now, so it's really worth trying to pick that up if you can. It's a really beautiful sounding album. Going back even further now to the late 70s, and we got Dirks Wears White Socks, which is by Adam and the Ants. Now Adam and the Ants became quite big in the sort of early 80s with their albums Kings of the Wild Frontier, Prince Charming, and then obviously Adam went solo with his Friend or Foe albums and stuff like that. But this was the album before those, so it's a bit more post-punk sounding. I wouldn't even say it's punk sounding; it's more post-punk, and it's a really cool album. Um, he he come out of the punk era. He done some stuff with the Sex Pistols and stuff like that, but this was his band. And before this, they've done a few EPs like Xerox and Car Trouble and things like this. But this is a really good album. It's quite a difficult listen because musically it's a little bit everywhere. Sometimes it sounds quite punky. Other times it sounds quite theatrical is the word I'm looking for. But it does contain some really cool tracks. Digital Tendency is really good, and Car Trouble, really, really cool tracks. But that's a great album if you've not ever heard it. This next one is a compilation of 3 artists together, and they've called themselves Red Sky Coven. Now, this contains Jules Denby, who's a poet and artist and tattooist, and it contains Rev Hammer, who's like a sort of Johnny Cash sounding sort of folk singer, and it contains Justin Sullivan, the lead singer of New Model Army. So this is a little band that they haven't done a lot with, to be honest. I've seen them a couple of times, but they tend to go out. Rev Hammer will go up and do a short set of songs. Justin Sullivan will go out and do a short set of songs. Jules will go out and do a short set of poetry, and then they'll do some bits together and tell a few stories in between. And it is a really great night out. And this is a live album. They've done a few of these. This is my favourite one, Volume 3. And it's really, really cool. It's just a good variation of seeing some different talents together and combined together work awesomely. It's like one amazing band almost. But yeah, Red Sky Coven, Volume 3, really good album, worth checking out. I've got another sort of comedy record next, sort of post-punky, and this is um, Frank Sidebottom. This is EFG&H, and this is him again doing loads of sort of cover versions. He does Sex Pistols cover versions. He just covers everything, and he's funny. He's really funny. Again, he changes the lyrics all around Tipperary, and he changes the lyrics of the songs. Yeah, uh, and he's kind of funny. He's from Manchester, and he's very proud of it. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Chris Severin, he passed away, but yeah, Frank Sidebottom's album's really cool listen. Uh, Another cool listen. Sorry, some of these cases are cracked. When I moved, some of the boxes had a really rough journey, and I don't really replace them. This is Beans on Toast, and this is Standing on a Chair. He's sort of like a political folk singer. Really great songwriter, and this album is full of songs. How many songs are on that album? It's a double album, and look how many songs are on there. It's a fantastic. He's really cool, Beans on Toast. If you've not listened to him, go and check him out. Check him out on YouTube as well. There's a few videos out on there. See if he's your sort of thing, because he is an acquired taste. I really like him. I've met him a couple of times. I've played Paul with him, and he thrashed me. He obviously plays with Paul a lot when he's on tour, and I hardly ever play it. Got to play a game of Paul with him, and he absolutely whipped me at it. But yeah, really cool. Beans on Toast is a good album. Another live album next. Got a couple of live albums coming up. This one's from 1990. This is Dr. Feelgood live in 1990. I believe I was at this show. It was recorded in London. Really, really cool. This is a great little album. It's got the album and it's also got it on DVD, which is really, really cool. Excuse me. I'm a massive fan of Dr. Feelgood. They were one of the first bands I ever really got into when I was a young boy, when I was about 8 or 9. I think my dad picked me up a single, Milk and Alcohol came out, and I just loved it. And then I went out and bought the album down by the Jetty, their first sort of like album, which is way before Milk and Alcohol. I've been going for years, and I loved that too. And it's a really sort of, they were like a pub rock band, if you know, like a bluesy pub rock sort of music, and I loved it. It was just like British rock, you know, in its purest form. Fantastic, and that's a good live album. Next is another live album, a bit different, more of a sort of a trip hop, sort of don't know how to describe them. A bit trip hoppy, a bit electronicy, a bit everything. But this is Live in Zenith by Archive. They're a really cool band. Uh, they are huge in Europe. They're from England, and they're huge in Europe. They sell out massive venues. But here, no one's really ever heard of them. I only know them because I know the drummer, Smiley, who's the drummer of The Alarm. This is his other band, and I've seen them a good few times. They've played like Shepherd's Bush Empire and places like that, and every time I've seen them, they've been fantastic. And there's like the lineup changes of various singers. They get sometimes they have female singers, they got male singers. Pollard is their main singer. He's a great singer. But this is a great live album. If you've never heard Archive and you quite fancy checking out something that's a bit different, alternative rock, bit trip hop, bit electronic, a bit of sort of like not industrial, but there's a sort of like heaviness going on in there. They're really interesting and worth checking out. I would start with this. I know it's a live album, but I would start with Live in Zenith first and see what you think of them. Really cool. Going back to the 1950s for this one, this is a double, two artists, it's like compilation. It's called Rockabilly Kings, and it's Charlie Feathers and Matt Curtis. I'm a massive fan of both of these. I'm really heavily into the 50s rockabilly scene, not the rock and roll sort of scene, the rockabilly scene, which was more of a sort of bluesy, faster pace, aggressive sort of music, and it was more sort of like a lot of bands that I love are all influenced by the rockabilly scene, you know, like the Cramps and bands like that, the Stray Cats, and that they're all from listening to these sort of guys, Charlie Feathers, Matt Curtis, Eddie Cochran. They were sort of like a more sort of like they were like not the punk, but I suppose they were the punk of the rock and roll era, because they were a little bit more sort of like edgy than your sort of Bill Haley in the comments and your stuff like that, which were all still really good, but these were a bit more heavier, which I liked. That's a really cool album. Got a sort of folky punk album next. This is called Gypsy Punks by the Gorgo Bordello. Really good band. I've seen these live before. Really cool. They're like, I don't know, describe them. There's a little bit of Pogues going on there with a little bit of more sort of more punk than sort of like the Pogues were. And they they play like gypsy music with violins and stuff, but with a punk feel to it. So they're really, really cool. This is a really, really cool album. The first track, Sally, is amazing. But Gorgo Bordellos, if you like punk music, check them out. They're really cool. American Hardcore next. This is a album called Agony by Life of Agony. I think it's called Agony. Ugly. Really cool album. It's about their second or third album in. Really good album. I love this album. Lost at 22. Great track. There's so many good songs on this album. The album before it was a lot more heavier. Had a more heavy metal sort of feel to it. This come and it was a bit still heavy, but it had more of a sort of a bit of a Manic Street Preacher sort of feel to it. It was like it was a really cool sort of like sound which I've not heard before, and I really enjoyed this album. Ugly. It's a really cool album, Life of Agony. I'm getting there, guys. Getting quite near the end now. This next one is called The Daughters in Grandma's Greenhouse, and it's by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. I've still got the price sticker on it. £5. Yeah. The Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Now they're a 1960s, 70s band that sort of make music that sounds like old 19 sort of 20s and 30s sort of gramophone records, and that they're really cool. Neil Innes was one of the main members of the band, and they're really cool. Me and my friend went to see these in London a few years back now, and they were fantastic. They had Neil Innes and a lot of the original lineup. They had a few guests. They had Ade Edmondson, Stephen Fry, and Paul Merton. So it was really, really cool, and Phil Jupitus. So it was really cool that they all sort of like come on and did songs of theirs with them. Really, really cool band. Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Check them out. They're fantastic. Loads of albums out. Now a bit of 80s indie pop next. And it's Box Frenzy by Pop Will Eat Yourself. They're really cool. The Poppies and the Stuffies, the Wonder Stuff, were really sort of popular in the 90s. And I went through a phase of really liking them. That's just down to going to sort of places like clubs that we used to go to, and they were always played there, Beaver Patrol and songs like that. And this is such a good album, and it's got Beaver Patrol on here. I really love this album. Really like Pop Will Eat Yourself. Underrated band, I think. Box Frenzy, cool album. Godfathers of the Grunge Scene next. Daydream Nation by Sonic Youth. Another great album. This was the album that sort of introduced me to sort of like the shoegazing sort of sound with like bands like My Bloody Valentine and stuff. And these went on to be quite grungy and sort of helped to kick off the grunge scene, which was big in the 90s. This is an 80s album. And they sort of become more grungy and became, you know, more famous around the sort of grunge scene in America. The Sub Pop, Mudhoney and all those sort of bands. They sort of kicked that sort of genre off. And this is a really cool early album of theirs, Daydream Nation. Such a cool album. They've had a few albums before this, Sister and Evil, but I do like this one. It's just such a cool album. The title track, is it Teenage Riot? Yeah, Teenage Riot. Fantastic song. Absolutely epic. Really good album. So I've got 1, 2, 3 more to go through. This one's a sort of gothic-y sort of album with just a piano and a drummer, and this is the Dresden Dolls. Really cool album. It's got a great track on it called Coin Operated Boy, which was like their single. Really, really cool album. Great artwork as well. Yeah, it's different. Um, it's like a punky version of the Duke Special, and she's got a great voice. I just love them. I think they're such a good band. Didn't do many albums, and this was their debut, and it was really, really cool album. Really cool. Check that out. Second from last, the Divine Comedy, and this is a short album about love. It's a really cool album. It's not very long. It's only 7 songs, and they're all fantastic songs though. Neil Hannon's songwriting skills are incredible. I love his songwriting skills. This is a great album. It's and all the songs about love, and some of them are quite funny. Songs like called If, it's quite funny, but it's got some songs there. In the Pursuit of Happiness, Everybody Knows That I Love You Except You. It's got some really cool songs on it, and I love the artwork. That's really, really cool. And it's only a short album, but it's really good. It's Neil with Divine Comedy with like a string orchestra behind them as well, and it's really, really cool. Really nice listen. Last but not least is another 90s, could be 80s, could be end of 80s. I think it is the end of 80s indie scene, and this is George Best by The Wedding Present. Such a good album. I love The Wedding Present. I still go and see them now. They still play. I still see them occasionally live, and they still release stuff. They still release albums, and they sometimes release like some old live albums from like the 80s and the 90s, which are great to hear. And this George Best set, look at all the stuff that's on that. It's there's just so much on it. There's got like live stuff on there. It's got like a DVD on there. It's got a whole disc of live recordings, and it's got the album plus all the B-sides and demos. Such a great album, and this is such a great collection. Absolutely love The Wedding Present. If you've not checked out The Wedding Present, this is the best one to start with. It's their debut album, and that's George Best. And there's loads of albums there for you to be getting on with. Sorry it's been quite a long video, but music, there's so much to get through. I have over 2,500 albums. So, and I've only dipped in with 10 here, 20 there. So I've only been dipping into bits of my collection. But these are some awesome albums that worth seeking out and checking out. Guys, till next time, you look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.